I also would bring it when I'm at the end of a deal. So a lot of my clients just love it. They just love it. Like it's pretty theatrical. Like, what's that? That's my saber. If you don't sign, this is what's going to happen. I'm just going to use my saber. It's like, who carries a saber? Like, well, I do.
Hey there, Solar Warriors. I'm Nico Johnson, and this is Suncast. Each week, I pull back the veil on the life and business insights of clean tech entrepreneurs building the most noble and impactful companies of our time. I hope what you learn from this conversation is a catalyst for your own growth. So thanks for tuning in, and welcome to our tribe.
Hey, welcome back, Solar Warrior. I'm thrilled that you've chosen to spend this time with us today. Time is your most valuable and non-renewable resource. So thank you once again for your vote of confidence. I hope that you are enjoying our all-female lineup this month of March, and I am excited to bring you a conversation today with another phenomenal clean energy deal maker. But first, a few quick announcements and a note here at the beginning. I've been so honored these 4.5 years since we started with your faithful patronage of Suncast every week. I was just checking our stats and absolutely floored and excited at the same time to see that this week Suncast podcast exceeded 200,000 all-time downloads. It's such an amazing honor to know that you care enough to listen that many times. I know I'm probably not talking only to my mom at this point. So thank you, Solar Warriors. Thank you so much for showing up. You inspire me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to keep more content coming your way. Oh, hey, and did you check out or see in your feed that we finally started going live on LinkedIn? To my knowledge, you guys feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I may be the first person in renewables to have done a LinkedIn live. If not, I'd love to know who else. I'd like to actually do a live with that person. Hey, go check out my video, would you, with Suncast Guild member Austin Tabor on the 3 keys to founder freedom. If you're not familiar with the Guild, you can check that out. Click on Become a Member at mysuncast.com. And if you have an idea or guest or topic that you'd like to see covered on one of our LinkedIn Lives, please do shoot me an email or DM me on LinkedIn. How meta is that? And speaking of live, mark your calendars for a special live webcast that I'll be hosting with my friend Tara Doyle of PVEL and a few other special guests on March 31st to commemorate the wrap-up of Women's History Month with a provocative roundtable discussion. Stay tuned for more info on that. Today's guest does not consider herself an entrepreneur, so I'll give her some other titles. Whether or not she would be self-referential, Mona Dajani is a deal machine. She's also the only woman ever to be head of energy and infrastructure of a major law firm and the only lawyer on the board for ACORE. That speaks volumes for her trustworthiness and her ability to reach new heights. In short, she's a trusted advisor and has been the steady hand in nearly $100 billion with a B, $100 billion worth of renewables transactions. In today's episode, Mona unpacks for us the 3 key elements of a good deal: a reliable pathway, risk mitigation, and the reality of the macro environment of the deal. We also unpack where deals get stuck, what Mona does to relax after all of the stress of a deal. And as you'll hear, she has such an infectious laugh. I like to think that this contributes greatly to the appeal of this self-proclaimed network-aholic. And at times, she appears superhuman, but rest assured, I can get Mona comfortable enough here to reveal her secrets to success and a life well lived. I know that you'll love seeing the corners she's peering around. Head over to mysuncast.com if you are interested in any of the other 240 or so other founders and startup stories from the trenches of the clean tech battlefield. And while you're there, please consider joining the tribe so that you'll get weekly rays of sunshine dropped right into your inbox, just parachuted in there, letting you know what you might have missed or what's still to come on Suncast. But for now, get ready to tune up your skills, Solar Warrior, as we tune in to another powerful conversation here on Suncast. All right, Solar Warriors, we are back with another fantastic interview that I just know you're going to get a ton of value out of today. I am so honored by Lauren Glickman constantly bringing wonderful folks into my field of view. And Mona Dajani is no exception, and she's the exception in many rules. She's a partner and global co-head of energy and infrastructure projects team at Pillsbury. Pillsbury is a award-winning international law firm, well known by many of you, so I don't need to go into the qualifications of Pillsbury. Mona has been a leader in the energy sector for more than 20 years, where she served as lead counsel in many of the most significant renewable energy transactions. And she's closed more than 500 transactions, structured nearly $100 billion in capital. Mona's got her hands in M&A, finance, IPOs, raising capital, and she's also the only woman ever to be head of energy and infrastructure of a major law firm. She happens to be the only lawyer on the board for the American Council on Renewable Energy, also known as ACORE. And she's a regular contributor and commentator for international news outlets like Financial Times, Politico, Washington Post, New York Times, Bloomberg, and the list goes on. Mona, welcome to Suncast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is a real treat to be talking with you today.
Yeah, the treat is all mine. Genuinely grateful. Grateful to have you on. It's not often that I get to meet people in person, but I always look forward to meeting guests when I have an opportunity. You know, hopefully we'll be up in New York. We'll get a chance to meet face to face. But before that, we're going to dive deep into sort of the practice of showing up in the world and becoming one of the most respected and renowned lawyers in our sector. So if it's all right with you, I have this vision in my mind. When I was in project development for Conergy, you know, I'd been in a lot of different business roles, but it was only then, circa 2015, that it really occurred to me that lawyers and legal counsel, I don't know if you guys prefer a specific term, but lawyers are.
I don't care.
Yeah, lawyers are deal makers, right? They're the glue that holds the paper together, right? They're the paper clip, like, But apart from that, like I remember going into Mexico, going into Panama, and one day just realizing, oh, all of the really good connections that I have locally are because we chose this law firm or that law firm. And it turned out that the law firms that were representing us were creating massive value long before we actually created a valuable asset. You know, you've been sort of heralded as a deal maker in our industry. I mentioned, you know, nearly $100 billion worth of capital structures. You've got a whole lot of other stuff that you work on, but did you plan on being a deal maker, a lawyer, you know, one of the best in the industry? Or did it just kind of happen that that's the path that you came into? What was the catalyst for you that got you over to renewable energy specifically as a part of your practice?
I'll just say this. I mean, I, like most lawyers, I mean, I was really good in school. And it turned out I was very good at writing, and I didn't like blood. So, and so then what I decided to do was to maybe just go to law school. So I went to, but before that, I was a little bit shy about the commitment, you know, and what that took, right, because it's graduate school, you know, here in the U.S. So I decided that it might be easier if I just went and just go to university. And I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, which is it's a Big Ten school, and they have one of the best engineering departments in the world, and ended up learning that. And then I got a job at Enron in Houston, and this is when I was, you know, very young. And I was just, you know, working on energy deals, and I morphed more into the deal making, the corporate, putting the deals together, development, finance, you know, corporate and securities. Decided that it was taking my lawyers too long to go to approve what I was trying to do. So I decided to just go to school at night, and I got an MBA. And then eventually, and again, it was very easy for me. It wasn't hard. I went to law school, but always with the idea that I really didn't want to work in a law firm. I really wanted to be a deal maker. I really wanted to be out there putting deals together, like what I was doing at Enron. So I used my skill in engineering and in business, and organically just grew in, my career just kind of, took off. And I'm very passionate about this, about this space. And I just became very passionate about it. And it wasn't hard for me to seek deals and helping people in this space, whether they're developers, investors, bankers, governments. It wasn't, because I love it, because I was loving it. So it didn't seem like work for me. It was just something that I really love to do.
Having worked in, at an EPC and at a developing company, and even at, selling modules and trackers and all kinds of different things, deals take on a life of their own. One of the things that I find fascinating about what you have shared with me about your career, I find myself asking, when did X happen, right? So you're at Enron. Kind of unpack for me what the role was that you were given at Enron versus the role that you took at Enron. And I'm happy to expound on that if you want.
Right. No, I know, and I think that's what happens a lot when you're working at startups. And believe it or not, this was in the 90s, and I was looking for something different. I wanted to get out of Chicago, which is where I'm from. And they're like, hey, we're looking for a junior person to assist on helping us put these deals to fruition. And it really helps that you understand all the technical aspects because you're an engineer and you can read the plans. And there's, and when you look at a deal, potential deal, a deal sheet or a letter of intent, I could tell very quickly whether this is something that Enron should spend their money on or not. And what I loved about doing what I did when I was going in originally was I would just be basically looking at the technology and saying, yeah, this works, or no, this doesn't, and kind of peeling the onion and understanding just the basics, because a lot of the financing and the corporate, they don't understand the technology, the real estate, really the hard assets, really what makes it tick. So just looking at how much money is this going to make? What's the IRR? What's the ARB spread? So because like everything, when you like something and you're good at it and other people higher than you recognize it, you get more and more responsibility. And that's what happened. I just got more and more responsibility. I could handle it. And that's what I do now, with my team and the junior people on my team that work with me, is I give them as much responsibility as they can take. And I don't want to micromanage or macromanage for that sake, but it's a matter of, what your aptitude is and whether this is something that you can do.
The thing I'm wondering is, which you answered, what role were you given versus what role did you take? And and that really points to the evolution, because many, many people come into a typecast, right? You're an engineer, Mona, and I'll state the obvious things that sort of stand out to me. Like in every energy company I've been in, like I can't remember. I can remember one, and she was fantastic, but one female engineer. Okay, and it's certainly in the 90s, right? So the quality of female engineers today, and especially with technology, has gone through the roof. But I went through engineering school in the 90s. There was one professor that was female and one student in my class that was female. So you're coming into Enron with a double typecast, a female engineer. And I see you really take
and Yankee.
That's right, coming out of Chicago to Houston. I see you taking the bull by the horns, and I have to ask myself, like, what was in Mona's mindset that was directing her to where she wanted to spend her energy, despite what her peers or bosses were telling her she was supposed to be doing, right? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
Okay, so yeah, I am the type of person personally where if I'm not the best, then I don't do it. And that means if whatever it takes to be the best. So I went into this job, everyone had very low expectations of me, including myself, by the way. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And then one success after another, and you get catapulted, and that's what kind of happens. It's like an organic growth. When you have really smart people around you and they recognize that drive, that persistence. And I think that persistence is really key. It's one of the keys to success, I think. But if you're, meaning that you're not going to give up easily. If you have a setback or a failure, you learn from it, you move on. So that's kind of what happened with me. And I started low, no expectations. And then I became more and more critical to the deal team.
What were some of the early things that you feel were the aha moments for you where you go, I think I understand this more than they do or my peers, sort of the elements of the deal that you started to grab?
Well, it's really funny. Today, I can talk to engineers and I can talk to bankers and I can talk to other lawyers, and I can tell within, 5 minutes whether they know what they're talking about. Because when I look at a deal, I'm looking at it from a technical standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, from a financeability, bankability standpoint, and what are the issues that are really worth spending some time on? And the most important is being very commercial. And what that means is people want all sides when they're spending this kind of money to do, these deals. They want to know that their deal's going to close. They want to know that there's deal certainty. They want to know that the people that are running the deal are not going to get hung up by pedantic small points. So that's how I look at things. I look at things, all different ways.
And you've got a sensitive BS detector.
Exactly. I do. I mean, and I don't call it all the time, just if anyone's listening.
Yeah. Well, I hope someone's listening. That's hopefully there's someone listening. And thank you for listening.
Yes. Yes, of course. I didn't. Yes. Well, so if anyone's paying attention, that's
right. That's right. They're paying attention now because that's quite all right. They're paying attention now because of that wonderful laugh. I'm wondering from your perspective, and we're going to gloss over a bunch of things that are probably just phenomenal and remarkable about the trajectory and growth of your career. And I apologize for those who are asking themselves questions that I'm missing right now. But the thing that comes to my mind as I'm thinking about the way your career trajectory has blossomed is twofold. The first is, when did you realize that you were no longer an engineer and that you needed additional skills? You mentioned that you got the MBA, the JD MBA. You did that through night school, which is super admirable. And then from there, how did you begin to migrate into the area of renewable energy? So it's kind of 2 steps.
Okay. So when I was at Enron, I quickly realized that that there's a lot of steps for approval for your deals. And so one of the steps was legal, and they would never understand what we were doing. Mm-hmm. They couldn't understand it. And that is another kind of very big differentiator that I bring to the table today, mm-hmm. is that I'm not like the average lawyer at all, by any means. Because I look at things multifaceted, and there's, dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. So I went to school and I did my MBA at night. I got my actual law degree actually during the day. So I actually took some time off and did that. But then what happened was while I was working at Enron, I was doing a lot of power deals, and it was fun. It was hilarious. I remember one time someone asking me like, hey, why don't we do a blackout? Is that against the law? I'm like, I don't know. Then there was a deal, like a first deal that I ever did in the 90s, and it was a wind power project that Enron was going to be, a subsidiary of Enron was going to build. Today, it's like super old, but it's an icon, and it's in Palm Springs. Do you know that one? Do you know the windmill one? Yeah. So that's super old, but that was one of the first deals in wind. I was the lawyer and that represented Enron, and it was great. And that's what sparked my intense passion for renewable energy, clean energy, global warming, climate change, all of that.
Yeah,
that's what started it.
You got your JD while at Enron, or you went and then came back to Enron?
I actually went and came back, but I was only there for a short time because we started having some issues right away with the bankruptcy, as you know. So I pretty much scooted out of there and worked. I got a job working at Kirkland & Ellis, which did a lot of work for Enron, and I focused on energy and private equity. So it just was a very easy move for me.
Fantastic. That is really, really fascinating. So that was the segue into Kirkland. And your very first deal as a lawyer was on a wind deal, a renewable energy deal. Did you always have, sometimes these types of deals can fall in our lap. Was it for you something where you self-selected and started to believe, okay, I think I can focus on clean energy, or did over time you just sort of gravitate towards renewables? Is renewables, I guess also a parallel question is renewables as a category something for you that has been like a foothold, or is it simply is incorporated into a broader international legal expertise that you've crafted?
What happened with me was once I got started in wind, and I compared that to conventional power and oil and gas and all the others, I really wanted to stay. And so I intentionally focused entirely, and I would say primary, you can't do it 100% all the time in this space, on both a domestic and international level. And what that has given me is deep vertical understanding of the entire supply chain and, soup to nuts for project development, project finance, IPO, everything. It also catapulted me on an international level, and I don't want to bore you, but I can, some really super exciting times in this space on an international level, and having amazing opportunities when you just in the renewable space.
Well, actually, yeah, let's go there. I had a question about that because it's not self-evident that someone who is a star in their own little, we'll call it in your box, right? If you're a star in your own universe, to become a star in the broader universe or the galaxy, and to be seen in that way, like it's not self-evident always to the star. But as you said, you kept getting pulled into bigger and bigger deals. When did you get pulled into international deals? How did that work? And I mean, so many of us, myself included, have become involved in international work, and it's hard for me to start unpacking. Like, wow, when did I decide that I wanted an international, element to my toolbox?
Right. Well, when you become known as a deal maker and as someone that can really add value and close your deals and have, and inspire confidence in all the counterparties, that's what the parties want. They want to have that certainty. So I started here in the States And now I regularly, that's why I start my day very early, regularly travel. I have calls from Asia, the Middle East, Europe, South America on a daily basis, and deals. In my space, in this space here, in renewables, it's small, believe it or not. And it's the same issues that you're dealing with. No matter if you're in the U.S. or if, you're in Saudi Arabia, where I had other deals. So what happened, how I got there was I started here and then word of mouth, believe it or not, across the ponds. and then one thing led to another, and then it was just like a snowball.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, no, it completely makes sense. I feel like one of the things that maybe is worth saying out loud is my experience, and it could be different from yours, is that one of two things typically happens. Someone you worked with before gets a new job. Your current client, like a specific person, an engineer, an HR person, et cetera, like they move on to another company. Maybe that's an international company, et cetera. And they go, oh, we have this need. Mona did a kick-ass job for me. Let's go talk to Mona. Or, and this in the latter is probably the most common, someone that you've been working for, a company, a developer, et cetera, begins to really grow in and build momentum, grow into themselves, and they take the jump into another market, and they are more willing to go with someone they know rather than look for help in that new market, right? Because of what you said, the deal structure is relatively similar no matter where you go in the world. So do those resonate?
Yeah, no, it does. It resonates. I mean, I had clients in the U.S. that went abroad, yes, and then that proliferated. And then I had met more people and met more companies while I was abroad. And then I was able to kind of build that expertise on an international level.
All right, Warriors. So you know that high demand charges can ruin a good commercial solar cell. But what if you could offer your clients 30% in demand charge savings at a tenth? That's right, a tenth the cost of installing a battery. You can now do that with DemandX, a new demand charge reduction software from Extensible Energy. Check it out at extensibleenergy.com and read the 3 case studies on how DemandX significantly reduced demand charges and increased ROI without batteries. As a Suncast listener, you can also get a free demand charge analysis at extensibleenergy.com/Suncast. What do you have to lose? Crunch the numbers and see for yourself how Extensible Energy's inexpensive DemandX software is a win-win for you and your commercial solar clients. Hey Warrior, I bet you're already aware of CPS America's dominance in C&I with over 30% market share. But did you realize that they also shipped 500 megawatts of utility-scale 1500-volt inverters in 2019? Their unique design flexibility makes them the only company with the ability to eliminate DC combiners in the field. And their DC to medium voltage balance of system bundle allows for as much as 40% reduction in costs. But wait, there's more. With string inverters increasingly used in utility applications, CPS is infusing smart tech innovations to drive down costs along the value chain from DC generation to AC delivery. If you'd like to find out what other cost stack reduction CPS can bring to your C&I and utility projects, head to mysuncast.com/CPS. Do you spend time the way, maybe, I don't want to call him out, but like our buddy Dino Barajas, who is probably one of the most well-traveled conference attendees, do you spend time marketing at conferences and places like that? Or for you, is it more word of mouth from client to client in terms of like how you find new deals?
I certainly go to some conferences, but not all of them. I think it's, for me at least, it's much easier when it's word of mouth and people just know you and your reputation and they want to come, they call me, and say, hey, I have this, what do you think? Can you help me? Versus meeting people out of the blue at a conference. At the conference, it seems a little more random, and it's much easier to have a meaningful relationship, professional relationship, when there's already some trust. And that trust could be you know a mutual person, or you worked on a deal together, or you're friends. Maybe you were on the other side of another deal at another point, but there's some familiarity. I'm very active in ACORE, and I'm, like you said at the beginning, I was reelected to the board last year. I'm the only lawyer. It is a vote, and that is a trade association, an association that I highly recommend for people in the U.S. that really want to meet.
And it's remarkable with ACORE as well. Like, the thing that I feel like sometimes people don't necessarily give credence. They think, especially if you're stuck, I'll use in quotes, you can't see me, but in the solar industry specifically, you think about SIA and SEPA, but ACORE is the renewable energy industry, right? These are folks that are dealing with batteries and wind and hydro. It's geothermal. Like, it covers the entire gamut. And there are some. You got like Ormat, one of the biggest developers in the world, is a geothermal and a hydro and is a thermal and a geo developer, right? Like, to be able to be the only lawyer on the board for ACORE, I just want to point that out. Like, that actually is a big deal, and to be re-voted into the board is a huge vote of confidence.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you. It's great because the people on the board with me are many of them are the top in their field, in their whatever, in the particular. And, and yes, it is. It's pan-renewable. It's technology agnostic as long as it's renewable.
You mentioned a minute ago, you said that kind of no matter where you are, it's the same issues you're dealing with. And the way I wanted to couch this question is, what elements do you believe to be the truly core elements of getting a deal done?
I think that the core elements are, number one, you need to have a good deal.
So simple.
Meaning, it can't be like, hey, we have all this hair, all these bad points. There's just so many obstacles at the beginning. That's number one. And this is not in any particular order. This is just, I'm doing the consciousness of thought right now. Okay?
Sure, go for it. Yep, you did not prepare. She did not prepare for this question. So,
right, absolutely not. So you have to have a good deal. You have to have people on the deal where there's a certain element of trust. Like, you can't put two entities together, or three entities or whatever, where there's really complete lack of trust. There needs to be, and I will tell you, one of the biggest issues I find that people minimize, they don't realize this, is counterparty risk, meaning who are you dealing with on the other side? And even if, you're selling something or you're buying something, at the end of the day, I'm a very big proponent in, first of all, understand what their motivation was for getting into doing the deal in the first place. Because again, that will go to understanding what the counterparty risk is. Are they being forced to do it? Do they have an outside party forcing them to do it? Do they like each other?
For those of us who don't deal day to day with counterparty risk, are you referring to your sort of the diligence to better understand the likelihood that someone can and would walk away from a deal?
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is, and yes, you're right. But on a more simplified basis, it's, do you trust? Is there some element of trust on the other side of your deal, whether they are a buyer, a seller, they're a supplier, they're, a landowner, anything. The energy, and the counterparty risk is, what is their likelihood that they're not going to flake out? Because I have done, believe it or not, deals. I've done deals, believe it or not, whereby we have spent sometimes more than a year working on all the issues that need to get resolved to close. And then on the deal table, the party gets up and walks. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of money, not to mention all the transaction and opportunity costs.
That's an expensive.
Believe it. Yeah.
That's an expensive mistake. Yeah.
Yes. So, you asked me about like what are the keys for a successful deal. The number one after having having a good deal is counterparty risk.
That is huge. What else? Is there a short list for you that's like you said early on when you were at Enron, you could sniff out a good deal better than anybody else. Why? What was it that you'd sense?
It's so easy for me now. I tell clients, just let me look at your term sheet. I won't even charge you. Just let me look at it. I could tell in 10 minutes. It's a sense. It's not a cookie cutter. I mean, all the deals are different, and it obviously depends on, are we looking at solar? There's a lot of solar. Are we looking at wind? Are we looking at biomass? Are we looking at geothermal, hydro, what? But you could look, and there will be some telltale signs, whether it's technical or financial or like the expectations, what they're looking for may be, not in sync with reality. And this is what happens. I mean, I've been doing this over 20 years. You just kind of, I could just eyeball it and go, okay, here's what the problem is on this one. And that's just from a very high level, 30,000 feet. But I can tell, this is something we need to focus on, and let's discuss it. Let's just have a meeting.
I'll sort of synthesize this here. So what I heard is the core elements to a deal are a good deal, good people, and a good understanding of reality, right? And so if you have good people with a good deal who are trying to shove through a technology that's 5 years too soon, or who are trying to do what they saw happen in California, in Iowa, right?
Yeah.
Then reality doesn't match.
Right. I mean, I'm simplifying very broad terms, but that's the reality. I mean, if you have a technology that hasn't been proven yet, that's not being realistic. That's not reality. That you think that you're going to get easy peasy financing or even a strategic partner or buyer.
Well, let me ask you.
You'd be surprised.
Let me ask you another angle to this problem. You've seen hundreds, thousands of deals by now. What's something that you're constantly surprised that your clients don't seem to understand about the nature of the deal? Or maybe said a different way, something that you always know you're going to have to step in and own.
Well, one of them is, and I'm really surprised at this one, is, two people from two different companies meet, whether it's at a conference or at a meeting, and they get so excited about how each one would mutually help each other that they don't focus on the detail. They paint the deal very broad strokes. And it's the saying, devil's in the details. It's all those details that really determine whether you have a viable deal or whether it's bankable, And I'm surprised at how little it seems they know about the real specifics of the deal.
They're already at the negotiation table trying to come up with valuation and still are learning new nuance to the deal.
Right. So it's not just about the purchase price. It's about timing. It's about the warranties. It's about credit support. It's about, here's a good one, and this is a good one for solar developers. I have seen so many solar panels go everywhere, right? And it may not be that when you scratch the surface a little bit and ask the question do you own or lease the rooftops? Or do you have site control? And you'd be surprised how many do not.
Yeah, I would say at a macro level you would be, but I've asked this question enough that it doesn't surprise me at all. I can tell you, Mona, that the number one answer, I was waiting for it, frankly. I was like, when is she going to say site control? Because one of the questions I like to say is like, where do deals get stuck? Like, where do they just sort of start to
Yes.
unravel? In my experience, I've seen, site control, and the other one is the right of way, right? It's not even someone to lock down site control, but they don't lock down right of way to their interconnection point.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, and the easements.
Yeah, the easement is the same. Yeah, easements. Yeah, right of way. Yeah. I always translating it from Spanish, which is servidumbre. It's like, wait, it's basically the right of way, but easements is the right word. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's the same thing. Easements right away is the same. It's you're spot on as usual.
Thank you. I'm feeding off of your energy here, and you are certainly the expert on this. Maybe I'm just self-congratulatory because I got one right. I was like, yes, I guessed one.
No. I mean, so it's the details. It's the details. And what's also important, and it's a delicate balance, and this is where a lot of the lawyers get hung up, is on the details. Like they want to try to map out every single mitigant or possible blowout, all the different scenarios, and that's fine, but don't get hung up. I mean, it should be, don't get hung up on everything. And that's another element of, when I see this in other lawyers, it's like, some of it is lack of experience, lack of expertise, and a lot of it is their nature, which is, they're not an engineer. They're not like me.
Yeah. Well, so let's explore a little bit more about you and what makes you unique in the world. Because if you're anything like some other polymaths that I've had on the show, the way that you show up doesn't just stop at work. I know that you have a family, and I know that you do enjoy those brief moments away from the office. If you had a superpower that is not deal making, that has to do with your perhaps social circle or the way that you show up for folks that are not inside of a deal, how have you expanded your horizons in that way?
Well, when I was going through that period of my parents being so mad at me because I wanted to leave engineering, I took some time off and I went to Europe. And I went to cooking school. I went there because I was trying to get my head straight on what did I want to do with my life, and this was before I had kids and family. But I went to cooking school. I still do love cooking. And I, worked in a restaurant. It was very difficult. It was just like being deal maker, lawyer like me, it's more than it's not 9 to 5. You got to get up early. You got to do what it takes. A lot of times, your time is not your own. It's very much like it could be dictated by, at least in the cooking, by what was caught that morning for doing seafood and what types of vegetables there are and spices and herbs. And so I still am very much into food, and sadly, I'm not working. I don't have a restaurant or working in one anymore. But I love to cook, and I love to have dinner parties. And along the way, I also became a sommelier, and I became very good at wine.
Wow!
You can probably guess I'm into France.
So I'm guessing your dinner parties are pairings.
Yes, so I have wine pairings. And the other thing I do is, which is interesting, and a lot of people might already know this that's listening, is that whenever I close a deal, depending on, timing, but a lot of people know this. I mean, I we'll have a dinner party and I will be the one chefing it. I will make everything.
No
and
way.
Yeah, way. And then I also
I want an invite to the next one. That sounds
yeah,
fantastic.
you have to come. Yeah, you should. You should. I mean, people are like, they just can't believe it when they see me wearing my apron and my white, chef's apron. And then the other thing I do, which is still at these dinners, and it's a hoot for me, is I had my hand cut many, many times learning how to do this, but this was many years ago now. And so now I'm like very good, but I have a very large saber. So I have this big saber and I put it it's in a case so I can travel with it. Of course I have to check it in. On airlines. That's what sucks, but I do have to check it in. I will bring that saber with me to the dinners, and I will, depending on where the dinners are and whether I'm the one that's chefing it or not, I will use it. I'll open the champagne bottles that way. And then I also would bring it when I'm at the end of a deal. So a lot of my clients just love it. They just love it. Like it's pretty theatrical. Like, what's that? That's my saber. If you don't sign, this is what's going to happen. I'm just going to use my saber. It's like, who carries a saber? Like, well, I do.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So and so this is just something I also mention to, young people just starting out in their careers is, you got to do what you love, and you have to combine what you love. And that's what I did here. I took the food and the wine, very different worlds. Believe it or not, I have represented a lot of wineries now. And I'm happy to say whenever you go to California or certain parts of France and Italy, I have always told them you need to have solar. And so there are some, and I've worked on some, where I've represented wineries with solar panels, and I think that's great. And it's just because they believe so much in my enthusiasm for the technology and the energy, for solar energy in particular. So I combined it all together. I just combined my love of food and wine with, the people that I've worked with to close deals. So it's fun.
I love that.
It's really, really fun.
I always say, those who know me well or have listened to this show often know, I say, be memorable. It's one of the things that will carry you through life. And I just love hearing how what a fun way to bring enjoyment to what you love to do and give it meaning and memorability. Are there any key lessons or takeaways for you from some of the more important or most important maybe mentors in your life or career?
I didn't really have mentors with the exception of maybe my parents. Mm-hmm. Don't get me on another topic.
Yeah.
About women in the legal profession, but I mean, I do have some. I think what's really important is, as a leader, I think what and also looking to mentors to help you. I really believe in 5 characteristics. One is that you need to have a vision. Vision matters. And that is, you need to, believe in yourself and know what makes you tick and what you see yourself going to be. That vision matters, and whether the people around you are going to support that or not. And that means, you need to be able to clearly articulate what that long-term vision is, communicate it, and then hopefully, your support system believes in you. And this is more as a leader now, is to, simplify your message. And this may sound very irrelevant, but it's all about thinking and strategy. It's very important not to get, to be able to explain your message in plain language, and even though, so that it conveys that you understand a very complex idea, but it's boiled down to, something simple. So it's actually much harder. I forgot who said this. Someone said this about, it's a quote, and it's a singer that I love.
I thought you were going to do Winston Churchill. I'd have written you a longer letter or a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
I think it was Pete Seeger, and he said something along the lines of, anyone can make something complicated, but it takes a genius to make something simple.
Mm.
The third one is this, and I'll go through these quickly, is staying committed. Staying committed. I kind of talked about this at the beginning. You need to care about the long term and be resilient and be able to, pick yourself up when you have failures, and, get a thick skin to deal with criticism and don't waver at the first sign of trouble. I think critical is to know who your market is. If you have a great product but no one to market to, that's bad. If you have a huge market and a mediocre product, the market will pull that product out of you and you would have a really good chance of succeeding.
Is there anything that you see coming down the pipe from a transaction perspective? Like, what's on the landscape that maybe within your circles you're seeing a common mechanism being utilized, but kind of like a PPA in wind, we didn't hear about it in solar until 2007, 8. What do you see on the horizon there?
I see, from a macro level, what I'm seeing a lot of is big institutions making strategic partnerships with other, whether it's developers or sponsors or other types of companies on the value chain. And they're doing a lot of value adds on a vertical level. 1 and 1 is not 2, it's like 10. That's what I'm seeing. And then I'm seeing rinse and repeat. So the deals will just replicate themselves. They just do another project. There's a lot of companies out there that are buying outtake on an exclusive basis. There's a lot of companies where I'm seeing not joint ventures, I'm seeing quadruple ventures, where each company is bringing something to the table. I have one that will bring technology, and it's like a specific technology, it's like a small component. So I'm seeing that. I'm seeing a lot more financial products out there that are, I never thought for financing. And I see banks, private equity, insurance companies, pension funds, infrastructure funds, all, coming to the table with different products so that to bring down some of that cost of capital. And I'm seeing a lot of interesting combinations where I never saw 10 years ago, never.
Fascinating. Mona, I just know that your dinner parties must be incredibly intriguing and interesting, and I can't wait to be able to attend one. You've kept me wrapped here for more than an hour, and for that I'm truly grateful.
Well, me too. I am so grateful for your time. This is great. You're very well known in this space, and so I'm just delighted to be able to speak to your listeners and have that opportunity. That's great. And for sure, you will come.
I love it. Well,
I would definitely love for you to come to a dinner party. Absolutely.
We will make that happen. We will link, of course, as we always do, to your Twitter and LinkedIn accounts so that folks can find you. Mona Dajani is a partner and global co-head of energy and infrastructure projects team at Pillsbury, world-renowned leading legal firm. Mona, thank you for joining us on Suncast.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nico. Thank you.
Hey, all right. You're still here, and I am so thankful for that. I love the super dedicated outro listener that you are. You just never stop learning. Well, you, my fellow Philomath, can find all the resources and highlights that we talked about during this show from this and every other discussion, frankly, along with the social media links, the book recommendations, and more over on the blog at mysuncast.com. If you click on listen, that'll take you to the blog page. You can drill down to each one of those individual blogs. We list the books and all the goodies there. I recently added a big old button to the homepage that'll take you straight there. Since I know that you're listening to the closing credits, I know that you are predisposed to helping improve yourself and to others. So I'd like to offer you 2 ways you can do that. If you'd take 2 minutes out of your life, I'd really appreciate it, to give us your feedback. We have listed our listener survey, both in our emails as well as on the homepage. I do read all of these surveys, and it gives us so much more information about how we can help the Suncast tribe grow in your own personal and professional endeavors. Number 2, shoot us an email with your own recommendations of guests or topics that we should be thinking about including on Suncast or on our live webcasts and LinkedIn Lives. I really would love your opinion, your feedback there. It makes a difference. And lastly, if you've considered reaching out to work with me one-on-one, I do have one coaching spot opening up. So hurry on over and click on the Work With Me button at mysuncast.com to fill out a simple application and schedule a time to have a chat about that. And of course, next week you can expect a couple more wonderful female leaders coming into your inbox, into your earbuds. We've got Rosanna Francescato from Clean Coalition talking about microgrids. And then we've also got my good friend Kendra Hubbard. Long time coming, and she will be featured on Suncast talking about her journey to the role and work that she plays now, both as a national salesperson as well as a board member for SIA. Can't wait for you to hear that story. Remember, you are what you listen to, Solar Warrior. Thanks again for showing up. It's half the battle.